we're going to talk about AGP Day of Awareness. For those who don't know what AGP is, it's short for autogynophile. And we're just going to go through this slideshow and talk a little bit about what AGPs are and why it is we're concerned about them and why it is we're making this video, because I think that way too many people think that there's this, that somebody with gender dysphoria is the same thing as someone with autogynephilia, and they're very different things and they needed to be treated very differently. Unfortunately, the AGPs are really taking hold of the narrative and undermining women and children's rights to an extent that I never thought possible. So let's get started. We'll just talk about the slides as they come up. Maria, do you want to just look at this slide and talk about what AGP is a little bit?
Sure. So autogynephiles are men who get a sexual charge out of presenting as women, entering women's spaces. These are kind of what we think of as the traditional transsexuals, cross-dressers. They steal their wives' clothes and wear them, and they get turned on by it. So that's what autogynephiles are. I see you've got on here, they often call themselves lesbians. This is one of the most bizarre things for me. These men are straight men. They're attracted to women, and they've got this fetish that they want to present as a woman. But by and large, they're straight men. Am I right about that?
And they're physically intact. These are not men who have had their penises inverted. These are not men who have had their testicles removed. These are men who oftentimes they will get breast augmentations because they enjoy playing with their own breasts as if they were, their girlfriend's breasts or something. But they are completely biologically intact. And so one of the things that we hear is that they go into women's bathrooms and they get erections because they're being turned on by that experience. This is a sexual fetish. These are men who need help controlling that sexual fetish, but instead they've really captured the narrative and convinced people that they are indeed women. These are the ones who are just completely eroding the rights of women and girls. And it's because of this narrative, this idea, trans women are women. Well, no. And by and large, trans identified males have a sexual fetish that they're taking advantage of. And so anytime we allow a male to claim womanhood, we're allowing them to appropriate womanhood, and we're putting women and girls at risk.
And we're also, every time this comes up, we're normalizing it and taking the stigma out of it.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, let me just go to the next slide. So they really get turned on by the ability to go into women's restrooms, women's locker rooms, women's changing areas. Oftentimes they have a huge animosity for women. We will see posts where they're saying, well, I am more beautiful. I am a better woman than any other biological woman could ever be. Or I've fought harder to be a woman, so therefore I'm more valid. So they really have this almost disdain for women there. And I've seen some research that's shown that autogynephiles are connected to lots of other violent crimes. The rates of, peeping toms, the rates of voyeurism, the rates of rape, the rates of sexual assault, the rates of viewing child pornography are all much higher among those that are autogynephiles. And the other thing that I just want to emphasize is that they are actively taking away women's consent because they're appropriating womanhood. And then they're insisting that we accept them as women, and they're vilifying any woman who says, wait a minute, you're a man. And in some cases, that's even considered hate speech for us to simply say, we don't want you with your penises in our bathrooms, lockers, and showers. That's now considered hate speech. Women are being kicked off of Twitter, kicked out of Facebook, simply for saying these are men who are biologically intact and we don't want them in our spaces.
It's really a jealousy thing, I think, with them. They're jealous that they want to look like women, but they really aren't women. And you're right, they're capturing the culture and capturing the narrative and convincing people that they really are women. And what are we telling girls? What are we telling our young girls? That, oh, you don't have a right to say no. I think about the video that swimmer's mom, the UPenn swimmer's mom put out talking about Will Thomas, and that she asked her daughter, you know, what are you going to do about changing in the changing room? And her daughter said, well, I guess I just don't have a choice. And the mom said, you always have a choice about whether you undress in front of a man. And that we have to tell our daughters this. No, you don't have to dress in front of a man. You don't have to change in front of a man. But these guys are saying, oh, yeah, you do.
And I also really worry about the message that we're giving to boys. We're basically telling them that women and girls' consent doesn't matter, that their feelings are more important than our basic rights and protections. And that's really dangerous. And a lot of these, as I mentioned before, these are not just men who are struggling, feeling that they were born in the wrong body. Many of them are predators. You can see this is a man, and it looks absurd. He's got a beard, and you know, he looks fully like a man. And this is someone who I've seen laughing about the reaction that women have when they see him in the women's bathroom. He's getting a kick out of intimidating women and scaring children. He thinks this is a great game to be playing. And this is the kind of behavior of a predator. So there's also pretenders. This is another category. These are men who have figured out that they can gain an advantage simply by pretending to be women. You know, they may not even be completely autogynophilic. They're kind of acting like one in order to gain advantage. But I do think a fair number of them, once they start presenting as a woman, they kind of get excited by it because they are seeing how much power that they gain. This is completely motivated by personal gain, and oftentimes again by men who really are enjoying intimidating women and taking over women's spaces. I've heard of it referred to as colonizing women's spaces, but it definitely is appropriating womanhood. And one of the things that's really dangerous is that they're embracing and perpetuating exaggerated sex-based stereotypes. So one of the strange things about this movement is that if a man wants to appear more feminine, a lot of times insurance companies will pay for laser surgery, facial feminization, breast augmentation. But if a woman wants to appear more feminine, she doesn't get those benefits. So somehow these guys who want to appear more feminine have a right to these interventions and to have them covered by insurance. But women who want to appear more feminine don't. So again, it's just embracing this incredibly dangerous ideology that is raising up men's feelings and prioritizing them over women's rights and protections. So what do you think?
I need to say, I am so frustrated with the media calling these guys women. This is not a woman, a transgender woman arrested, accused of sexually assaulting a teen. No, a man was arrested for sexually assaulting a teen. And I'm sorry, I had a little outburst there, but I'm really, really frustrated with this.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing is that they keep track of the number of, kinds of crimes. And I've been hearing people say, well, women are starting to commit more violent crimes. Women are starting to commit more sex crimes. I'm like, no, they're not. These are men who are now being classified as women. So this movement is even obfuscating important data about crime.
We've got to get people to call it what it is. Stop normalizing it and say, like this says, these are men. These are not women.
And these are men who are being celebrated as the first woman who did this and the first woman who did this and the winner of this and the new champion of this. These are men. These are men who have, and I've heard people who have said, you need to be kind, you need to be nice. And I want to acknowledge that these are all men who have a mental health issue. These are all men who are struggling. And society has done them a huge disservice because instead of putting up those boundaries that they need in order to understand that their behavior is inappropriate, our society now is opening the doors to them. And so, yes, these men are actively undermining women, but at the same time, society has opened the door wide open to it. And so we need to really push back and say, it's not nice to allow men to pretend to be women. It's not nice for men to take over women's sports. It's not nice for them to take over our, to say that now this Martin Rothblatt is one of the highest paid female CEOs. Well, no, he's not. He's a man. Richard Levine is not one of the first 4-star women generals. He's a man. These are taking away titles that are that women should be holding. It also undermines our ability to clarify how women are doing as far as our accomplishments are. You know, it used to be that it was very clear if there was huge wage disparities between men and women, if there were huge disparities between the number of women in certain professions. Well, now that's all gotten thrown out the window, and we can't even tell how women are doing because men are now being classified as women.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with equality. We hear that all the time. Oh, trans women, we need to treat them with equality. No, they're subjugating women's equality. They're subjugating women's rights, women's chances to achieve things.
And I'm just going to scroll through some pictures here. May and Maria, just would love to have your reaction.
It's just, to me, it's just utterly disgusting.
Well, and notice the posture, you know, we go from being
so,
man to being, oh.
It's so sexualized. And the majority of the women I know do not look and act like that. Oh, and this one is just even more disgusting.
Yeah.
And again, this is illustrating how these are men who are getting sexually aroused by this. This is, you know, would be considered a paraphilia or a fetish. And in any other time in history, these would be recognized as predatory men who need mental health services. But now they're being celebrated, and women like us who are speaking out are the ones who are being vilified.
Oh my goodness. These guys.
Yeah, and again,
I mean, you really do kind of have to feel sorry for them.
Yeah, society needs to be giving them the message that this isn't okay.
Yeah.
If they're getting turned on by this, then there's something seriously wrong.
Yeah, something has gone wrong in our society. These are generally good-looking guys who then go and do this. I mean, something's really wrong. And our colleague Alex Iron has talked a little bit about the sissification and bimbofication of men that happens in pornography. And this is where men are sort of being conditioned to think of themselves as women and to pleasure themselves as women, and to even oftentimes want to be degraded and demeaned in the way that pornography does to women. So not only are they taking, you know, guys and they're becoming fetishized by this, but they're also, their whole view of women is being really tainted by this idea that, you know, this is what a woman is. I'm a woman if I have great big boobs. I'm a woman if I wear makeup and I make a, you know, pouty face.
And I'm a woman if I'm subjugated sexually, if I'm degraded, because that's, yeah, as you said, that's what porn portrays women as.
Yeah.
And I almost think about anorexics, you know, anorexics look in the mirror and really see themselves as fat. Like, even if they're emaciated, they really see themselves as fat because it's a mental disorder. I think these guys, do they look in the mirror and they really think I'm a beautiful woman? I've
often heard it described that they think of themselves as the perfect girlfriend.
Yep. And this is another disturbing thing, is that, you know, I heard an autogynophile talk about his breast augmentation, and he said how wonderful it was. He didn't have to waste his time trying to find a girlfriend. Whenever he wanted to play with breasts, they were right there. So again, this is a mentality that is really objectifying women's bodies and suggesting that our breasts are what make us a woman. We know that's not true. There are lots of women who have flat chests. They're still women. For this narrative to be promulgated is just harming women in so many ways.
Well, and it's harming men too. That's not good for that man.
No,
that's not good.
Let me see if I can play this video. Oh, hang on a second.
Oh,
I want to play it with audio. I don't know if you heard what he said.
I couldn't understand it.
I couldn't understand it.
I love wearing women's clothes. And then in the video, he goes on to really play with himself. And this is just, in so many ways. Like, yes, this is harmful for boys. I think about the boys in our society that are being given the message now about what a woman is, and that they can become a woman simply by saying that they're a woman, and that girls' consent doesn't matter, and that they can take over women's sports, and any woman who speaks out about it is responsible for the death of men and the death of, you know, anybody who's trans identified. And that we're, so it's just, sometimes it's hard to even imagine. But here's just a tiny example of the kinds of things that are said about women like us who are speaking out and saying, no, you're a man. They say things like, I want to punch a turf in the effing face. If you're a turf, you can get effed with the business end of this barbed wire baseball bat. All turfs deserve to be shot in the head. I want to rape a turf to death and then chop its bodies into pieces and leave them for the crows.
Not even her. It's
no, this
Yeah.
is violence against women that is being encouraged by this ideology.
Oh, our social media accounts, we very regularly get messages like these, very regularly. Yeah, this is just a little sample.
Right. And again, this is a way of completely subjugating women. And the fact that this is being empowered by the media, by press, by schools, by doctors, by policy, it's astonishing to me. And we have to fight back, even though this is incredibly hard when we're, you know, I can't tell you how many times women post something standing up for our rights and we're told to suck some guy's dick who's pretending to be a woman. You can see that with the response to J.K. Rowling. Go ahead, May.
And when you see these types of comments, these types of comments are okay. And when we speak out, they're not okay.
When we say men are not women.
You're actually a man is considered hate speech. Them saying they want to rape us with a barbed wire bat is just,
that's acceptable.
And this is a child molester who molested a 10-year-old girl. Now he's going to be housed with girls in a juvenile detention center. And that's the other thing, is these perpetrators of crimes against women are now being able to claim a woman's identity and are being housed with women, making these women incredibly vulnerable to crimes, especially to sex-based crimes.
Well, and all of us are vulnerable now. And I was explaining this recently. I said, I'm scared about my daughters going off to college because they can't say, I want a female roommate, and be sure that they're going to get a female roommate. And if they get some, you know, guy who says he's a girl, they don't have the right to say, no, I don't want to room with him. And as we've said, a lot of these autogynophiles, they're intact men. I don't want my 18, 19-year-old daughter sleeping in a room with an autogynophile.
No, she's not safe. And she shouldn't have to. Ultimately, she should not have to. And that's another thing we're seeing in schools, where autogynophiles are becoming chaperones for overnight events for girls. They're becoming, they're allowed into girls' bathrooms. So an autogynophile can go into bathrooms with, you know, little girls and watch them and ostensibly help them. There are reasons why we have women's bathrooms. There's reasons why we have women's sports. We have women's bathrooms because women are not safe. And we see this, they're not safe. We have women's sports because we need an opportunity to excel. And these are being taken away by us.
How in the world do you explain to a young child why there's a man in the dressing room or the restroom with you, and without being called all kinds of horrible names?
And potentially being kicked out of the store.
Exactly.
I've heard of situations in gyms where a woman has complained about a man being in her shower or locker room, and she's been kicked, she's lost her membership. This is another example. I want to link to this video in our description, but there's a video of just case after case after case of an autogynophile raping, sexually assaulting, murdering, assault. I mean, this happens. And over again, I hear people say, you're just making that up, or, oh, that never happens. Well, it does.
Or that's just a one-off. That just happened one time. No, this is pretty common.
Right. And it will be increasingly common as we accept the idea that it's just perfectly fine for these men to go into women's bathrooms and locker rooms and showers, and there's nothing we can do about it.
I mean, we've been working on this for years, and I am still just gobsmacked that people are still saying this is okay.
Yeah.
I just look at this, I keep calling it a cult because it's been a mass cultural brainwashing that people think it's okay to put that guy in a cell with a woman.
Yeah. This is a man who raped a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And yet I heard of a case, I believe it was in England, where a woman was raped and the judge required this woman to refer to her rapist's penis as her penis. The female penis, and this woman was required to refer to her rapist as a woman, or in court, was compelled to in court. This one was raped by a man, and the courts are requiring her to pretend like this is not a man that raped her, but it was a woman who raped her.
Right. Well, there was just an elderly woman raped in a retirement center, and they're saying, no, it wasn't rape because there wasn't a man involved. Yeah, there was. The roommate was a man. No. He was a trans woman, so it's not rape.
Well, and then there was a case in a hospital where a woman who was on a female-only ward reported a rape and was told there were no men on the ward, so she couldn't have been raped. Well, it turns out a year later, they discovered one of the women who was on the ward was a man impersonating a woman, and she was raped by him. So for a year, she was told she was making this up. And I just wanted to play this clip because this is where we've gotten to. This is a woman who is most likely going to be our next Supreme Court justice. And let me turn up the volume here.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can.
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the
I've been having sort of an ongoing argument with my husband about this, because he said, well, this is sort of taken out of context, and this is what they do to Supreme Court nominees, the opposite party. She's a Democrat nominee, and so the Republicans are trying to trap her. And I just kept, I'm not buying that, because she threw women under the bus.
Yeah, she did.
She knows what a woman is, but she knows if she says, yep, woman,
Exactly
adult,
there.
woman, female, that if she says that, she's going to lose the nomination. So she did what was politically expedient for herself, which was to punt, not even punt. It's just to throw the ball out of the park, because she didn't want to answer that question.
And the irony is that Joe Biden specifically said that she was nominated because she's a woman. We all know what women are.
We all know.
He said that he was going to nominate a Black woman.
Yep.
And she doesn't know what a woman is. I didn't even put that together. That's a good point, Erin.
Yeah.
So she was nominated because she is a woman. And so she knows exactly what it is.
And that's where this whole thing is so absurd. The last slide I just wanted to share, this is from specifically from here in Utah, trying to pass legislation to prevent boys from participating in sports. And the governor vetoed the original bill. On Friday, the Senate and House overrode his veto. So it was great news. But this is something that I'm seeing circulated around on social media. And it says, 4 kids and only one of them playing girls' sports. That's what all this is about. 4 kids who aren't dominating or winning trophies or taking scholarships. 4 kids who are just trying to find some friends and feel like they are a part of something. 4 kids trying to get through each day. Rarely has so much fear and anger been directed to so few. And this is the narrative that is allowing men to completely eliminate women's rights and protections.
Because is it just 4 kids?
Well, first of all,
it's so many times multiplied by that are being affected.
And really, does it matter if it's even just one boy who takes away the rights of a girl? One boy who makes all the girls feel uncomfortable by going into the locker room. One boy who walks out into a shower fully naked with his male genitalia, one boy who takes away a place on a team for girls, one boy who takes away a scholarship opportunity. It wouldn't matter if it was just one boy that is taught that it's okay for him to completely undermine women's rights and protections and consent. But it's not one boy, because what's happening is that every single boy who sees this now gets the message that it's okay for him to disrespect women and disrespect girls and completely disregard their consent. It's every child who's being affected by this. It's every woman who's being impacted by this.
I'm just thinking about consent. And when my son was 4 years old, I had him at a playground and he was chasing a little girl around about the same age. And she was screaming, no, no, no. And he was chasing her. And I stopped him. And I was like, I can't believe I need to say this to my 4-year-old. But I said, she said no. And when she says no, that means no. So you stop what you're doing. Well, the little girl's mother was sitting next to me. And she goes, oh, it's okay. She loves it. And I was like, no, we need to be teaching everybody, girls and boys. And it doesn't even matter if it's girls. When somebody says no, it means no.
And May, is it hateful and creating fear and anger for women to want to protect our basic rights and protections?
Absolutely not. I mean, if that just goes back to the basics, if we cannot protect our own safety and our rights, then we're hopeless. I mean, it's just, where's it going to stop?
And so I think there's a way to end this on a note that says, you know, we are extremely angry about what autogynophiles are doing, what our society is allowing them to do, how this is impacting us. But we also recognize that society has let these men down, that it is our right, it is our responsibility to put these boundaries up. And by kicking them down, we have opened the door to these men who already have some mental health issues. And so if we really want to be kind and compassionate, we will put those boundaries back up and we will provide these men with support and help to get control of their fetish and probably even resolve it, because we know that anytime somebody has a sexual fetish, the more they focus, the more they feed that fetish, the more they embrace that fetish, the bigger it's going to get. And the more you ignore that fetish, the more you stigmatize that fetish, the more you provide other healthy alternatives to the fetish, the less powerful it's going to be. So we are really doing society and these men a disservice by pretending that it's kind and compassionate for them to be women.
Something I want to just interject right here is the thing I have found that gets people to really think about this. I'll say, well, do you want your mother or your grandmother or your daughter or your granddaughter subjected to this in any kind of a space?
Yeah.
Make it personal.
Well, in Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, she tells the story of a friend who took her 13-year-old daughter to a department store for her very first bra fitting. And the person who was going to do the fitting was a man who said he's a woman.
Yeah.
He's in there because he wants to see 13-year-old breasts.
Yeah. And it just, again, it's so frustrating when I think about the fact that we're the ones who are being vilified. We're the ones who are being called hateful. We're the ones who are being called bigoted. We are standing up for our rights and protections. There is a long history of women being abused by men, and that's why we have these separate spaces. That's why we have women's sports. This isn't us in any way saying we don't want effeminate men or men who like to wear dresses to not compete in sports. They're perfectly welcome to compete in sports. They're perfectly welcome to wear dresses. They can wear lipstick if they want. They can wear high heels. I don't know why they'd want to, because they're hard to walk in, but if they want to, that's their right. But then they walk themselves right into the men's bathroom and right into men's competitions. And that's how we get rid of these regressive sex-based stereotypes, not by pretending that men can actually be women.